video.
Okay, perfect. Oh, you look so
So
cute in
we're
the
all
hat.
good.
Awesome. I know you have
Oh,
like you
thanks.
have blue hair right now, right? Because of the show.
So blue. So blue.
Oh, I love it.
It's Looney Tunes.
I love it. I'm so excited for this. Thank you. I'm a huge
Oh, my
fan.
pleasure.
All right, I'm gonna do a quick intro and we'll jump right in.
Sounds great,
All
Jess.
right. Welcome back to Hot Takes and Deep Dives. This is Jess, and today I am with one of the most versatile performers in show business. You all loved her as Big Boo on Orange is the New Black. She's been performing live for over 40 years, doing stand-up, Broadway, and live music as a professional jazz singer. She's currently on stage again, starring in the reimagining of the Go-Go's musical Head Over Heels. Hi, Lea DeLaria.
Hi, Jess.
How are you today?
I am so good
Tell me why. Why are you so good today?
because I went to a thing called Open Dyke Night at Tramp Stamp Granny's here in Los Angeles. It's the second Thursday of every month that they have it there. And basically, it's a lesbian piano bar. It's a bunch of dykes and one playing piano, and people go up and sing just like at a piano bar.
Kind of like Marie's Crisis.
They're calling it live karaoke because in LA they don't understand what a piano bar is. But it's essentially it's a piano bar. And it's all dykes who love Broadway and singing. So I fit right in.
You know, I have to start off by telling you the last live show I saw pre-pandemic was on Valentine's Day 2020 at Joe's Pub.
My show.
It was your show at Joe's Pub. You performed the theme was all breakup songs. And
basically all Love Gone Wrong songs.
the girls from Orange is the New Black were there performing. I Drive Myself Crazy by NSYNC. I was living for that.
Yes.
Are you going to do that again this year?
Yeah, yes, I am. And in fact, that's my next record. My next record is called Fuck Love, and it's all Love Gone Wrong songs. So when you see it again on February 14th this time, it's going to be all the songs that I'm going to have on the record.
I don't think people who loved you on Orange is the New Black, I don't think they're aware that you are a professional jazz singer.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of fun.
So did you always mix your stand-up with live music? Like, how did that
Always
happen?
have. So when I first started doing stand-up in San Francisco in 1982, that's how long I've been doing this. Believe it or not, I walked out on stage on April 20th, 420. Before it was 420, by the way. Nobody thought of 420 as 420 then. But it was. It's so on brand for me. It was 420. I walked out and I did stand-up in a gay-friendly environment. At the time, I wanted to do stand-up, but you couldn't really do it in the comedy clubs. They wouldn't, the heckling, listen, nobody heckles me now. Nobody ever, I mean, people were terrified of me, but back then they were heckling me literally because I was lesbian. And I could handle that. I'm very good with hecklers. I'm very fast, but it reached the point was like, I got an act. Do you want to hear it? Or do you just want me to sit here and prove that I'm smarter than you? For the 10 minutes I'm on stage. So they started doing this very open, they called it gay open mic comedy night at a club called Valencia Rose. So it was gay friendly environment. Everybody there was queer. Everybody there was there to support queer artists. But then I got really popular. I was actually very popular in San Francisco and became incredibly well known. By September of that year, I had quit my day job as a construction worker. Duh. And
I was literally going to ask, like, if you ever had a day job.
I was a construction worker in San Francisco. I renovated Victorians. And and I quit my day job and started supporting myself, entirely as an openly gay comic, playing at mostly gay bars, dyke clubs, dyke bars, little art houses, things like that.
Yeah.
The music happened because, my father was a jazz pianist. The first thing I ever did professionally was sing with him when I was a kid. So I had this in my bones, right? And I found that my comedy at that time, just, that fucking dyke, my comedy was so loud and so fast, so wild, so in your face. Like I wouldn't stay on the stage. I'd go out into the audience. I fucked with people. I mean, and people would be screaming with laughter. And after about 10 minutes, I noticed the audience getting really tired. Like they were tired of laughing because it was just nonstop rah, 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 in their face. So I figured, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give them a respite and I'm just going to sing a song. So I was probably maybe 4 months in when I started incorporating music, and it was great. I would, just rail at them for 10 minutes, then do a jazz standard and kind of lull them into this false sense of security, and then start screaming dyke and fuck and cunt at them again. So
were people shocked at the voice you have?
yes, always. I am the personification of don't judge a butch by its cover. Everyone is always shocked by everything I can do, because when they see me, they have that stereotypical butch thing where butches are fat and stupid and beat up their girlfriends and alcoholic. And, okay, I am an alcoholic, but everything else isn't true. And so, yeah, always been surprised. Jazz audiences, I would walk up to the stage. They would hear me on the radio. This is when people actually listen to the radio. They would hear me on the radio. They loved me. They come to see my show. And then when I walk up on stage, you could see them look at me with this look like, what's that dyke going to do? And then I would sing my opening number and they would go, okay, she's going to do that. So with the singing, it always takes them a little bit. They have to hear me first because the visual is not what they're thinking of as a jazz singer.
I spent my birthday this year with friends in Provincetown, and we went to your club. Like, you now have a jazz club, and you weren't performing that night, but there were some other guest performers and they were fantastic. The venue is amazing. It's inside, outside, on the water. Like, how did that opportunity come to you to actually buy this club?
Well, I got my start in San Francisco, but where I became ultra famous in both the United States and Canada. This is long before everybody knew me. This is way before the Arsenio Hall show. So, which is, for people who don't know, I was the first openly gay comic on television in America, and that happened on the Arsenio Hall show.
We're gonna get into it. Don't worry.
Oh yeah. But I had a residency in Provincetown. I first started performing in Provincetown in 1984, and the dealio was that it was a million drag queens and stuff for gay boys. There was literally nothing for lesbians in Provincetown. Literally nothing. I was the first dyke act in that town.
That's so shocking.
Yeah. And there were plenty of dykes there. They just didn't have anything geared towards them entertainment wise. So within minutes, I remember the first time, my first show, I walked up, there were 2 people in the audience, 2. And then, but I was like, fuck it, I'm doing this show. So I did the audience for 2 people. So the next night I came out and those 2 people brought 2 more. You know what I mean? So basically by the end of the week, through word of mouth and different dykes talking to each other, I was selling out 100 people a night at my show. And it didn't take long. The dykes were starving. So they were really excited to have me. And they would come back again and again, because anybody who's ever seen me do comedy knows that I don't really ever do the same show twice. I kind of use the room. I talk about things that are happening during the day, but it's always different. But I come from the San Francisco style of comedy, which is kind of comedy without a net. You just go out and start talking. So they would come back again and again and again. They would tell their friends. They started bringing gay men. All this started happening. The music was drawing gay men in because I was singing Broadway tunes and, as well as jazz mixed in with this comedy. So what happened was I had a residency in Provincetown, basically from 1984 until 1993, when I did the Arsenio Hall show. And then after that, I continued to go back to Provincetown because, well, let's face it, it was fucking great money.
I thought you were going to say it's so beautiful. Whatever. You're like, no.
Oh yeah, fuck that. Yes, that's a perk. It's gorgeous. There's no place like it on earth. It was like the gayest gay resort town ever.
Let me ask you, since you are a New Yorker, did you ever go to Fire Island, like either just for vacation, or did you ever perform? Like, what? I want to hear your.
What, are you fucking crazy? Of course I go to Fire Island. But when I go to Fire Island, I need a vacation for my vacation. To me, Fire Island is such a party town. You know what I mean? To me, Fire Island is staying up all night, just being crazy, which is great, weird because there really isn't that much to do. There aren't clubs like there is in Provincetown. You know what I mean? But New Yorkers have Fire Island sussed out. So there's always a house party. I'm always up all night. I'm always, and then I take the ferry home 3 days later and go, what happened? I didn't sleep once, like that. So yeah, I love Fire Island, but Provincetown to me, there's something very special and magical about Provincetown. There's a reason why artists have lived there since its existence. You know what I mean?
Earlier today, I was talking to a friend who loves you, and I was like, guess what? I'm going to be talking to Lea DeLaria later. And she's like, I smoked a joint with her in 1995. And I'm like, where? She goes, Provincetown.
Of course. See, so on my brand, all that shit. It's like, I hear these stories all the time. Yes. And I'm very generous with my drugs. If I'm smoking a joint, I'm like, you want some? Always. Yeah.
Let's talk about the Arsenio Hall show. So yeah, like as you said, you were the first openly gay comic on television in America. You did it before Ellen, Rosie, anybody, Margaret Cho. Yeah. And how did this happen? Like you were on the phone, some story that you were on the phone with Melissa Etheridge. Yeah, you're on the phone with Melissa Etheridge asking her for advice when you got the call that you got the gig?
Yeah, that's a fact.
What were you talking to her about?
Well, here's what happened. I was doing a show at the time called Muff Diva, right? And I was touring that all over the United States and Canada. And at that time in my career, I spent winters on the West Coast. And so I was taking my show to Highways, which is a performance art space in Santa Monica that is very, very queer friendly. So I was going to be doing a weekend run there. They got an interview with me with the LA Times. This is back when people actually read the newspaper. So I flew down. I thought it was important. So I flew down to Los Angeles from San Francisco to sit face to face with the woman who was interviewing me. And I was just, I don't know what it was. Stars aligned in a very specific way. And I was incredibly funny for this interview. I was just in a place. And we did it at Gold's Gym, of all places. She just thought it was funny to be at Gold's Gym. So random. We were at Gold's Gym. Yeah, I just random. And I was just on fire funny. So she wrote the article, and I guess the editors loved it so fucking much that right before the day my show was to open, that weekend, on the weekend section, art section of the LA Times, I had a cover story above the fold. I was the story. Well, the show just sold out in like seconds, and they started adding shows. And I started getting calls from agents and managers and all these people. And it was like this fame thing was happening in mainstream industry, and I had no clue how to handle it. So I had known Melissa since before she had this happen to her. Mm-hmm. So I got in contact with her, and she gave me a call, and I was, at Highways at the office. So I'm on it. They have me like set up with this telephone. So I'm talking to Melissa, and she's asking me questions about who contacted me and blah, 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 and giving me advice. And while I'm on the phone with her, people at Highways are knocking on the door going, Lea. And I went, guys, I'm on the phone with Melissa. I mean, really? You're interrupting me while I'm talking to me. And you know that I'm talking to Melissa. They were like, yes, but the payphone. There was a payphone. Remember those? There was a payphone. And Arsenio Hall's people called the payphone because they couldn't get through on the office phone. And it was the other phone that was listed. And they were like, we know you're talking to Melissa, but we've got the Arsenio Hall show on the other line. So I was like, Melissa, I got to call you back. I hung up Melissa and went and got the Arsenio Hall show call. Insane.
So you go out there, you do your set, you get invited back onto the couch. What happens after, like the next, first of all, I guess I want to know your mindset going into this appearance. Did you know that this was going to be a life-changing television appearance?
I was younger. Do you know what I mean? I was young. So I knew this is what I was thinking. I know that's kind of weird that you say life-changing because I didn't really think of that. all I was thinking about was how important it was that I didn't bomb, that I make people like me, that all eyes of the queer community were on me. It was more about how can I advance this cause further. I know that's going to sound weird, but that's exactly where I was, because that's always been my thing, try to change the world and of course get laid, not necessarily in that order. So, you understand, Jess. I'm sure that's why you do a podcast.
Of course.
So yeah, I more was thinking about that, which is why I was so ardent and didn't pull any punches. The Advocate did an article about it after I was on the air, where somebody counted. I was on the couch for 5 minutes. I was on my set for 4.5. So in 9.5 minutes, I said the word dyke or fag or queer 47 times.
Now, was your goal there to normalize the words?
Yes. I've always been that person. I'm not an assimilationist. I am not a middle class, mainstream assimilationist at all. I believe that we have our own culture and our own way of doing things, and those things should be celebrated. And reclamation of language has been an important political tool throughout history. I didn't invent it, certainly. And that's why when people say to me, don't call yourself a dyke, when queers say that to me, I say to them, well, you sound like a self-loathing faggot. I am a dyke. So when somebody calls me a dyke, I just laugh at them.
Have you ever been told that one of the when they were brainstorming titles for the L Word, one of the names, I know one of the writers who was one of the original writers on the show, and she threw out the title suggestion, dyke drama.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Dyke drama, da 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 da. I used to do that in my show. Whenever anything would happen, whenever I would see something, I would go, dyke drama, da 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 da.
Did they ever ask you to appear on the L Word?
Yeah, they had a couple times. I had to say no to the L Word. There were reasons. You know what I mean? It was just never convenient. Same thing with this reboot. They wanted me for the reboot. I just wasn't available. And that shit happens. And welcome to show business. You'll sit around with your thumb up your ass for 6 months, and then 10 people will call you the same day and all want you at the same time. It's just, you got to make your choices. And the L Word has unfortunately been wanting me when I was like just doing something way bigger. I'm sure we'll connect at some point. Not worried about it.
We need to talk about the fact you wrote the infamous U-Haul joke.
Yes.
So I want to know, where were you when you first said it? And had you actually thought of the joke premeditated, or did it literally come to you on stage? That
was a joke that I would say to my friends. Like, I never said it. I didn't say it on stage. I would say it to my friends. And then one day I just went, and my friends are like, you've really got to say this on stage. It's really very funny. So I was doing a show at the time called Lesbo A Go-Go. So I was in Provincetown the first time I uttered this joke. Memorial Weekend, 1989, Provincetown, Massachusetts. I was doing a thing where people would ask me, it was this bit, people would write questions to me. And then I would take these cards and respond to whatever those questions were. Right? So it wasn't like, nothing was planned. Nothing was like, whatever came at me, boom. And it was just a show. And if you have my first comedy record, which was Bull Dyke in a China Shop, I do that on that record. So you can see, it's something that I'm just good at, improvisational comedy and spur of the moment. And somebody wrote me, they were trying to be funny, right? So they were like, I have halitosis. I have halitosis. I have yellow teeth. All these things were wrong with them. Right. And it was all really stupid shit. Mm-hmm. And it was actually kind of funny. So I was reading the question and we were all sort of laughing at it, including me. And then the punchline of the question was, for the first time in my life, I have a second date. She says, for the first time in my life, I have a second date. She goes, what should I bring? She literally wrote the words, what should you bring? It was like so crazy. And I went, well, if you're like most lesbians on a second date, you'll bring a U-Haul. And the place went fucking batshit. And the joke is so easy to tell that by the time remember I said I always went to the West Coast in the winter?
Mm-hmm.
So that was in the summer. By the time I got to the West Coast in the winter, I couldn't say the joke anymore. Everybody had heard it.
Actually, truly, my favorite joke of yours is, what's the difference between a dyke and a lesbian? $250,000.
I did Conan's podcast 2 days ago, and he literally asked me what's the difference between a dyke and a lesbian, and I said $350,000, and he burst out laughing. He laughed so hard. It was so funny.
What? So okay, what happens? Like, what level of fame do you have after you get off stage from Arsenio? What is the reaction to you? Like, where does your career jump to?
Well, it was crazy. So what happened was, Arsenio at the time was the #1 late night television show, which is why getting the call from them was so important. It was bigger than the Tonight Show. It was bigger than Letterman. He was it. And a couple things happened. For one, I acquired a huge Black fan base. So when I would do shows, I would have queer people and then Black people, not necessarily gay Black people, showing up into my audience, which I loved. That was kind of great. Arsenio was watched around the world by, at that time, more than 20 million people, and which is nothing now due to streaming services, but back then that was huge. So I toured the world almost immediately. I was touring the world. I was playing wherever people spoke English, I was doing gigs there. So I gained an international fame as a result of the Arsenio Hall show. And then also, I signed with an agent, a manager. You started then seeing me on American television quite a bit. So I've been on American television since 1993.
How did you find out that you were going to be cast in the first Wives Club? Like, was this something you auditioned for?
Written for me.
It was written for you.
Written for me. Yeah. Paul Rudnick wrote that for me. And he's not credited. He's not credited with the writing of the first Wives Club. However, he's the fix-it guy. He's the one that came in and fixed all of the first Wives Club. He just fixed it. And anything you laugh at now was written by Paul Rudnick. And Paul, did not have to audition for that at all. The part was written for me. And at that time, when you would write, the reason people hired me was because I could ad lib on the lines that were given to me and be funny. And that's the reason Paul wrote it for me. Hugh Wilson, who was the director, just went, "Have a ball, Lea." And out I went. And the one who loved it was Goldie. Goldie was like, down. Goldie was game for any fucking thing I threw at her. She was amazing.
I mean, when you found out that you were going to be in this movie with such an A-list cast, not only in this movie, a mainstream movie, you must have freaked out.
Let's say I lost my shit a little bit. Yes, I did. But, I had done Friends at this point. So they also an A-list cast. You know what I mean? And you're going to laugh when I say this, but I was also on Matlock for a couple of seasons. And I grew up with Andy Griffith. So being on a show with Andy Griffith, I'm telling you what, that really helped me with my parents around my queerness. Because there was something legitimizing about me being on a television show with Andy Griffith. You know what I mean?
That's so interesting.
Yeah. So I had gotten used to it, but to be with Diane Keaton, Goldie Hawn, and Bette Midler was and all three of them. And I had a ridiculously great relationship with Goldie. She would come to my shows. If Goldie was in New York and I was doing something, Goldie would be in the audience, which was kind of amazing. You know, she saw me do Lil Abner. She saw me do On the Town. She saw me a couple times at Joe's Pub. She was a supporter. She was fab. So I love that. And Diane Keaton came onto the set. It was so weird. She came onto the set and she had this curler in the front of her bangs, the biggest curler I've ever seen in my fucking life. I don't know how girls do this shit. And she and I just started riffing on that curler for like 3 minutes. I was like, what can you get Radio Free Europe with that? It started there. And then she responded, and then I responded, and then she responded. And then finally because she's very dry. She just looked at me and she went, "You're funny." And I was like, I got it, you're funny.
You are famously dear friends with one of my other favorites, Sandra Bernhard.
Sandy B.
How did you guys meet and become friends?
We met at a mutual, we both had the same publicist, and we met at his break fast.
I mean, we all know that you are a Jew.
After Yom Kippur.
Yes.
We met. Yes. We all know that I'm not a Jew, that I'm Sicilian. So Jews and Italians, basically the same people. But we also know that I'm a Jew magnet and a huge fan of the Jews. And if you are what you eat, I'm a Jew. I've had more Jewish girlfriends and I have a Jewish girlfriend now. You know what I mean?
So what year was this?
Oh my God, this was 1992. We just sat, and it was really funny because we were both kind of circling each other at this party. And I've been a huge Sandy fan forever. You know what I mean? But what we bonded over was being gay pariahs. I know that's going to sound very odd, but we were calling ourselves gay pariahs because the mainstream of the queer community did not like us. They did not like us. We didn't pull punches, if you know what I mean. And by that, I mean the cis white middle-class male boys who ran queerness in those days. They didn't like us. We presented a problem. I was way too lefty for them. And Sandy was way too don't give a fuck about you guys for them. But we sort of bonded on that. And then we both have very, very remarkably similar views on life and reality and what our jobs are as stand-up comics and stuff like that. And we've just become very, very dear friends. When she got pregnant, that was the joke, that I was the father of the baby. We would both just very dryly say that. When they would go, well, they would go like, who's the father? And she'd go, Lea DeLaria. It's like, in a Sandy way. Oh, it's Lea DeLaria.
I love that. Were you around during the Madonna era of her life?
No. That was in the late 80s. I was always Team Sandy in that one, by the way.
Of course.
Team Sandy. 100%.
By the way, did you see, there was a hilarious headline written the other day, but long story short, it does seem like all signs are pointing that Miranda is going to be gay in the Sex and the City revival.
I don't think I'm allowed to talk about this, but I actually know everything.
Are you in it?
I'm not going to, no, I can say that. I'm not in it. I know everything because Cynthia Nixon and I are friends.
Okay.
That's all I can say.
Are you excited?
For the reboot? I'm a huge Sex and the City fan. So of course I'm excited for the reboot. Beyond belief excited for the reboot.
And I know your current, like, one of your closest friends and your ex runs that Sex and the City costume.
Chelsea Fairless.
They document all of the outfits worn on Sex and the City, and I'm sure now there's going to just be all new content generated.
Oh, they've been doing it. They've been sneakily finding photos and, doing stuff like that. So they've been doing it, trust. And yeah, for those of you who don't know, it's called Every Outfit on Sex and the City. It's a brilliant Instagram account, and you must go there. They're both so dry and so funny. And they have a book out called We Should All Be Mirandas.
I mean, exactly. Miranda was always the queer one. Let's face it.
Yeah, well, let's face it. Miranda should have been a lesbian from the beginning.
Well, remember there was that episode in season 1 where some people at her office think she is gay, and she goes out on a date with a woman, and like the refrain at the end is like,
with Pamela Adler. An actress who was in The Most Fabulous Story Ever Told with me and Jessie Tyler Ferguson. We know her very well. She works all the time. She's in the Versace story. She's in all that. But when she got the part, she was teasing me about it. She was like, I get to play a lesbian. I went, because she's straight. And so she was like, I was like, God fucking damn it. Why won't they give me these dyke roles?
Well, okay, we're getting there. Cut to Orange is the New Black. Now, many of the actors on that show they reflect on how they had no idea what this was. Like, they thought it was going to be a web series. Like, nobody was doing the streamers weren't doing, well, there were no streamers. Netflix was a DVD rental company.
Right. I mean, we weren't the first one on Netflix. There was, before us, there was House of Cards. Well, I loved House of Cards. The critics loved House of Cards. People didn't watch it. It just didn't have the audience. But yeah, we all thought, we knew it was internet TV. We also knew at the time, anybody was savvy, anybody who'd been in the business for a little bit. I mean, that's me. I've been in the business a long time. By that point, 20 years. So anybody who was in the industry knew that the future of television was going to be internet television. It wasn't going to be network television. And if that's proven to be true. So Netflix was going to, start this. They were the only game in town at that point. This was like Hulu was sort of starting, stuff like that. But the more, what made it more appealing was that it was Jenji Cohen. So this was like the first thing she did after Weeds, which was incredibly popular. So you're not going to say no to Jenji Cohen. And no, we didn't know. And plus the book was incredible. Again, the book, was on Oprah's book list.
Had you read the book prior to auditioning?
I had not read the book. I have to say, I'm a fiction reader. I like 20th century fiction.
Got it.
And a little bit of 21st century. I'm starting to get into it more. But yeah, so I don't really read those kinds of books. Even though there was a whole lesbian thing that was involved with it. I know a lot of guys were reading it, but I didn't read it. And when I auditioned, they didn't have a part for me. There was no Big Blue.
Yeah, I wanted to hear, what is your audition story? Because it seems like the part was written, this part clearly was written for you.
It was written for me.
What's the story behind that?
The story behind it was they loved me. I came in and auditioned for several parts. And then they said that there was no part for me. And I mean, this is, me, I can only respond to things a certain way. And I just went, I'm sorry, they're writing a show that takes place in a women's prison and there's not a part for me. Are you fucking kidding me? So I got really mad. I got really mad. And that I quit show business. I told my manager, I'm out. At the time I was signed to Warner Brothers jazz label in England. So I was UK. I was based in both New York and the UK, and I went back and forth as work dictated. So I told my manager, I said, I'm done. Call me when there's a little independent film or something. I'm just moving all my shit out of my place in New York and into my place in London. I quit. And when I got off the plane, there was like 1,000 messages from my manager, call me immediately. And he goes, he said, now you have to come back because they wrote a part for you. They realized that it was stupid that there wasn't a part for you. And Jenji wrote his part special.
You said you auditioned for a few different roles. What were the roles that you auditioned for?
Well, first I auditioned for a guard. And the guard. And when I did, that's when they loved me. That's when they loved me, when I auditioned for the guard. And they came back immediately and said, you're exactly what we're looking for. It's just the wrong part for you. We really need you in the prison. Yeah. So those were the two parts that I went in on. And then they were like, we love you. We're going to find something for you. That's when I had my hissy fit. Because at that point in my career, everybody was always saying that to me. I'm still waiting for that part they were going to write for me on Law and Order, and it's been off the air for decades. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, I hear it all the time. So yeah, these guys actually came through.
You guys obviously filmed that entire season in a bubble. Like, the entire thing was wrapped, and which is a rare gift, I think, for an actor, being able to film an entire show with it not yet out for public consumption and critics. By the time something goes to second season, there's already a perception about it. Like the audience has already given feedback. What was the
Right.
culture like that first season when you guys were clearly part of like very special material?
We didn't know because there was nothing like it, as you pointed out in the beginning. So when we were filming, we didn't know what was going to happen, but we all knew there was something special about what we were doing. It was like, I often refer to our cast as the island of misfit toys. Uh, there were only a couple of names, people whose name you would absolutely recognize. And one of those names, Natasha, this was like a comeback for her. She had a very bad reputation in the industry due to her drug addiction, which she has conquered in just amazingly. God bless her. I love me some Natasha Lyonne.
Obsessed.
When I got the part, Laura Prepon had not been cast yet. Like I didn't know that she was going to be in the show, right? Kate Mulgrew didn't need to do anything and didn't really want to do anything, but found the part interesting. So she came. And then, of course, Jason Biggs, who I didn't meet until the second season. These were the only people you really knew. Everybody else, we were all New York actors. We were all New York theater people. All of us knew each other. We'd known each other for a long time.
Didn't you do a play with Uzo Aduba?
Uzo and I, well, actually, that's Uzo, Annie Golden and I had known each other. She was in On the Town. So I'd known Annie since 1997, along with a lot of those people. Uzo and I did a musical together called Prometheus Bound in 2010 at American Repertory Theater, ART in Boston. So yeah, I got a text, and Uzo, this is another one. Uzo was quitting. Uzo thought her acting wasn't working for her. She was going back to medical school. I was on the phone with Uzo and texting Uzo on a regular basis saying, don't do it. Don't do it. You're meant to do this. Thank God she didn't. But so she's not the only one. I told you I quit. There were many of us like that. And then the young girls in the cast had all just graduated from Juilliard. This was their first fucking job.
Yeah.
So it was like me and Kate walking around Mulgrew, because we're the same age. So Kate and I walking around saying to them, don't get used to this shit. This is not what usually happens to these young girls. You can finish this show and never work again. Save your fucking money. You know what I mean? Save your money, be careful, all that kind of shit. So yeah, we had no fucking clue. And who could? There's no way to envision the explosion that happened the first day that show dropped.
Orange is the New Black. I mean, yes, there was House of Cards and like these one or two other shows, but this was an actual cultural phenomenon, and where the masses were consuming a series in one shot. The idea of dropping an entire season of television all at once created this.
And who knew that it was going to be so popular? Like, we had no clue. None.
So how did I guess, can you kind of walk me through, I guess if it dropped, we'll say on a Friday,
Thursday.
On a Thursday, how did
midnight?
How did your life change? Like the first day versus the second day versus a year later?
Friday. So it dropped on Thursday. On Friday, I was on the L train. I live in Bushwick. So I was taking the L train home from Manhattan. So the show hadn't even been on the air for 24 hours yet. So I'm on the L train. I could see this guy staring at me, and he looked a little rough, if you know what I mean. So when you're me and you look like me and you've been around as long as I have, when you see somebody looking at you on a train like that, you kind of move. So I was like trying to move and not engage with this guy in any way, shape, or form. So I kind of turned my back and started to move like I was going to next stop, get off that car and get on another car situation. So I moved over by the door. And then finally he went, "Big boo, you're a big boo," like that. And I went, it was so odd to me, right? And I went, "Yes, I am." And he goes, "Oh my God, I love your show," right? So okay, that's interesting. So that was Friday. On Saturday, I was walking in my little neighborhood of Knickerbocker, on Knickerbocker Street in Bushwick, which is the main drag where I live. And there was an Ace Hardware that I used frequent. Once I moved in, I was in that Ace Hardware all the time, fixing my apartment up. So I'm walking by the Ace Hardware, and there was a young Hispanic woman who worked there. So the young Hispanic woman comes running out of the Ace Hardware with a fucking screwdriver. And she goes, big boo, I was hoping I would see you. Would you sign my screwdriver?
I was hoping I would see you.
Yes. Because I went in there a lot. You know what I mean?
That's
so
amazing.
She comes running. I'm walking by. She comes running out. I can't tell you how many screwdrivers I had to sign over the course of the next 3 years. That never went away. Never went away. I'm like, how does somebody have a screwdriver in their purse hoping they're going to run into me? You know what I mean? It was so hilarious.
I mean, your character in a lot of ways was the smartest person in the prison.
She was the smartest person in the prison. Not just in a lot of ways. She literally was the smartest person in the prison. And they made that really clear. And that was a really fabulous choice of theirs because they were pushing against that stereotype that butches are all stupid. Mm-hmm. And they also did that thing where you were a little afraid of Big Boo when you first met her, like really met her. And then you found out that she's just a puffball, like most butches, hard crust, cream puff inside. So, I mean, they wrote that character very well for my people, if you know what I mean.
Were you still in the cast by the time Jodie Foster directed an episode?
Yeah. Jodie Foster directed in the first season.
Oh, okay.
Well, for me, it was so fabulous.
Tell me.
I wasn't supposed to be in that episode. And I basically begged them. I said, give me one line, give me anything, please. God, I need to meet Jodie Foster. You know what I mean? So they went to the writers and the writers loved me. So they went against whatever, because they have to pay me. I would say, you don't have to pay me. You don't have to pay. I was like, I want to get paid. I just want to be Jodie Foster. They're like, we have to pay you. But they did it. They wrote a line in there. So I showed up on the set. And there's Jodie Foster. I'm like, Jodie Foster. I'm freaking out. I'm freaking out. And I go and I give my line. We do a little rehearsal and I give my line. And she cuts, and then she goes, okay, you're very funny. So in my head, I'm like, Jodie Foster, that was very funny. Okay, you're very funny. Listen, I'm just gonna yell action, and there was somebody I said a line to, right? So he had to cue me, and then I'd say the line. And she goes, just give me 5 or 6 takes. So basically saying whatever I want. And so I did like 6 takes, and they chose one of the ad libs. And put it in the thing. So that was my first experience with Jodie. And then when she came back the second season, she got on the set. You won't believe this. This was crazy. She got on the set the day we had to close down there was such a blizzard in New York that they had to stop filming and send us home because we weren't going to get home. Right. So it's major blizzard. So we're all standing around, and it's all of us, a group of us trying to, because they're trying to figure out how to get us home in the midst of this blizzard. And Jodie Foster walks in because she's going to be directing the next episode. Mm-hmm. So this is season 2. She walks in, she sees me, and she comes right at me. She was like, Lea, how are you? It's so good to see you. And like, I'm losing my mind right now. You know what I mean? And everybody else in the cast, it's like Taryn Manning and all these, like, they're all standing there as Jodie Foster is just like talking to me like I'm her best friend. And then she walks away and they're all staring at me. And I was like, I have no idea how that happened. I'm grateful for it.
Amazing.
Yeah. So at the wrap party for season 2, which was a roller disco party, the bartender kept calling me sir. So Jodie showed up and she goes, Lea, how are you? And I went, the bartender's called me sir 5 times at my own wrap party. And she's just laughing her ass off about it. And I said, she goes, did you correct him? And I'm like, why should I? He can call me sir if he wants to. Obviously, it's a look I'm going for. And she burst out laughing again. It was so great. So yeah, love her. Just love her. But the Cubbyhole is it.
Did you ever take Laura Prepon to the Cubbyhole?
Laura never came to the Prepon, but boy, God, did everybody else. The day that we were nominated for, I think we got 14 Emmy nominations, pretty much the entire cast got up and we all went to the Cubbyhole together. There is no way to describe what happened in the Cubbyhole when we all walked in. I mean, it was like at least 15 of us women from Orange. And yeah, it was great fun. And we used to go there all the time because we would eat, we would do this thing called Orange is the New Brunch. It would be as many as 20 of us sometimes. We would all do Sunday brunch together, and then we'd go to the Cubbyhole and drink. It was insanity.
I love that. I've never heard that, and I love that. Where would you have brunch? Where were you going to brunch? Like Cafe Clooney?
No, nothing that fancy, darling. We went to Cowgirl.
Just because it's across the street.
Cowgirl.
Oh, Cowgirl. Oh, perfect.
Because Cowgirl, I knew it as Cowgirl Hall of Fame. Cowgirl is just a part of the village. It's just part of the West Village. You know what I mean? So yeah, we would go to Cowgirl and then we'd walk on over to the Cubby.
You were speaking earlier about, Gen Z, and it made me think of the performance of people being offended by words. You know, and how it kind of chips away at the community. Like you're saying, like the L, it's being kind of chipped out of, they keep adding letters to LGBT, and then there's all these letters that
drives me fucking crazy. My joke is, by the time you're done saying it, the fucking parade's over. is the joke that I always use.
Like, how did this happen?
It's about inclusivity. And that started earlier in this century. Wanting to make sure that everyone felt welcome. Actually, it started even long before that. It started because it used to be the Gay Pride Parade. Then it became the Gay and Lesbian Pride Parade. And then bisexuals complained. So it was the gay, lesbian, bisexual, and then it was transsexual and transgender. So it was gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, transsexual. Then they just took the T and made both of them the same thing. They just kept adding, and it just kept becoming more and more. And this is why I say queer. I've always said queer. I've referred to myself as queer. I'm a dyke and a queer. These are the two things that describe me. Butch. I'm a butch, dyke, and a queer. Okay. And a very strong feminist. Those are probably the words that I would use to describe me always and ever. I'm from a generation that queer is good. Queer is who we are. Queer is everybody. And I say that because I think this alphabet soup that we've all gotten ourselves into actually points out our differences rather than our shared oppression. And it makes us feel like instead of a family, we're just a bunch of factioned off communities that don't trust each other. And the not trusting each other comes out when people get canceled for saying something that offends someone else. And, I hate to say canceled like that because that's something that basically the GOP and the conservative people use against us. And the reality is they invented that shit. Believe me, I remember when they canceled the Dixie Chicks. I remember when they canceled France. I remember when they're the ones that started this shit, not us. But we're the ones that carry it to an extreme that it's ridiculous. You know what I mean? And if I say something that's incorrect, let's say I misgender you. We'll just use that. I'm trying to think of any number of things.
Sure.
If I misgender you, first of all, look at me. If I'm not the original gender non-conforming in the public eye, I don't know who the fuck is. So first of all, look at me. And come from a place of love within your own community. If I did that, which I can do, I'm a human being, we all can do it. Instead of yelling at me, canceling me, telling me how I owe everybody an apology, how about just having a conversation with me and saying, I'm a they, them? To which I will say, sorry about that. My bad. Of course, I'll call you they, them. That should handle it. I get called sir every day of my life. I think there's a way to look at life and get past certain things And, I have my friend Freddie, who's in Head Over Heels with me. Freddie's like, it's just exhausting. And I went, Freddie, you're 25. Imagine being 63. Yes, it is exhausting. And you can let it exhaust you. Or you can take the opportunity to try to teach the world and make the world a better place. Which would you like to do?
So well
Do you
said.
know what I mean?
So well
yeah.
said. Where did you used to go out, like, in the 90s, even like late 80s, the 90s, like once you made it to New York and you were, what year did you move to New York?
I actually didn't move to New York until 97 when I got on the Town in the Park. But I was in New York all the time. I was performing in New York from 1988 on.
Where were you going out? Like, where were you? Was it always
the Cubby?
The Cubbyhole.
The original Cubbyhole. The original Cubbyhole, which is where Henrietta Hudson's is right now. And also the Duchess. I was at the very end of the Duchess, which was just one of the more interesting dive bars.
What is the Duchess
in New York?
This is before my time. What is that?
The Duchess was a dive bar that is basically where the Starbucks is now, and in the West Village, right there off of Christopher Street, Grove.
Oh yes,
yeah. It was a basement situation. You go down the stairs into the Duchess, and it was. We basically, one of the reasons the Cubbyhole opened was the Duchess had been around longer, but the Duchess was not very cool about letting non-white lesbians in. And a lot of us got pissed off about it.
Wow.
And when Tanya opened the Cubbyhole, we all went to Cubbyhole, which is how the Cubbyhole became famous. What was cool about the Duchess is when they started getting a clue and started stopping this ridiculous, I think they had some kind of, you could only let 10 Black women in or something horrifying like that. You know what I mean? When they finally got a clue and realized that they were being stupid and racist, and started letting everyone in. That's when it was interesting at the Duchess, because there would be like these really rich white women, and then these really, just thick Harlem girls and stuff, and everybody all dancing together and partying together. That was a scene, because it was a dance club in the way that the Cubbyhole had a dance floor too at the time. It was like, because it was Henrietta's, but it wasn't, how shall I put it? It never really was a dance club. Nobody really danced at the Cubby. You more fucked in the corner. And trust me, I did.
I guess
the new Cubbyhole is the only dyke bar I've ever been in where I haven't had sex in the bathroom, which is,
well, because
you're not going to do it that
Cubbyhole. It can only fit 3 people in there. It's too small.
I mean, 3 people in the bathroom? Lord.
No, 3 people in the
bar.
bar.
One at a time in those bathrooms.
No, 3 people in the entire bar.
Oh yeah, it's so tiny. I was talking to Lisa, who owns it. So there's 2 Lisas, both Italian. One owns Cubby, one owns Henrietta. So I was talking to Lisa, Cubby Lisa. So that's how we usually do it. Henrietta's Lisa, Cubby Lisa, or sometimes the initials of their last name. But I was talking to Cubby Lisa. I can't imagine anybody's had sex in the bar, just Lea. There was a girl in there. She goes, there was a girl that had something stuck in her vagina. I went, I don't want to know. Do not tell me what it was. Do not tell me what it was. But she goes, yeah, they do have sex in there. I was like, are they insane?
Disgusting, truly.
Yeah.